So thank you. Thanks so much. I was feeling what an incredibly beautiful conversation, because it felt so authentic. It's like when the soul speaks, it really hits home. And, when we speak from that place of authenticity, it's not about right or wrong or anything. It's just the soul speaking, my truth, my experience. Yeah. I'm sorry, because we've got some facilitators this weekend like me and Cal, who are so soft. Is that okay? Can you hear? And I just really wanted to offer, I suppose, my own journey and what I learnt from the BKs about really having a living relationship with God. And in one way, I think that, at the moment, you're looking at me. I'm a soul, and I sit in the front of the brain around the pituitary gland, and I'm the conscious being, but you can see me expressing through my body. I'm speaking, I'm responding, I'm acting. So the conscious, aware, live being is expressing through a material form. God is a soul, a point like me, but never has a material form, doesn't have a human body as such. But just like you can see me, I'm expressing, I'm thinking, I'm a real being. God also is a real conscious being. And in a sense, it reframes the whole dynamic of how to have a relationship. Because all our relationships have been through either soul, through the sense organs, see you, and your responses through your sense organs. So our relationships have really been based from the soul through the body to another soul through the body. And I think it's one of the great dilemmas that I think Fedor and Peter and others were talking about, that because we can't physically touch or see or listen to that soul, it's a whole different dynamic as to how to communicate. And I'm a soul that has done actions, and I reap the fruit of my actions. All of us in this room, we've all known extreme happiness and extreme sorrow. We've shared our stories. Depending on the quality of action I perform, I reap the fruit. But in a sense, there's one soul that never plays that game, that's like beyond the influence of the game of action and reaction. And so in a sense retains truth, remains pure, remains clean, remains unlimited in love and purity. In a sense, all the nutrients that either soul want, but have lost the ability to receive. So I look to you to give it to me, or I look to all sorts of sources, because there's a memory that there's one source that has the nutrients to really fill me. But because, in a sense, God, in the way I'm expressing, is a real living conscious soul, not an intellectual idea, not a belief, not a concept, but a real soul like me, but a pure soul, and remains eternally uninfluenced. So how do I connect? How do I communicate? And one of the ways I often feel is that God is on the FM wavelength. And when I, the soul, I'm body conscious, I'm on the AM wavelength. Now, I know the FM exists, but I can't tune in. And in a sense, sometimes I think from my own experience in religion, it's like that. We have such a deep yearning or passion, but we're on a different wavelength. So it's more a belief than a connection. Because I'm on a different wavelength when I'm body conscious. I'm on a whole different wavelength. And that's why when I become soul conscious, when I really begin to live and experience that I'm the soul, I'm on a similar wavelength. So I actually connect. And thoughts are an energy. And I'm absolutely fascinated by thoughts. They're beyond time and space. Light travels at 186,000 miles a second. Wow, I mean, that's incredibly fast. But thoughts are instant. So if someone in Europe or someone in Asia thinks of you, you pick it up like that. And even as I'm speaking now, people are popping in your mind because thoughts have an energy and you receive them, and you even know who is sending you that quality of thought. And so when we begin to create a picture that I'm actually developing a relationship, the way I like to think, is with a soul that's the lover of the soul, the eternal lover of the soul. I sometimes think why we have relationships, we love people, we're close to people, but we're still looking. There's a memory of something even more, because we've tasted that purity or quality of a love that doesn't love me because of how I look or how clever I am or anything, but it's a purity of love. And I think a lot of it is, I realized when I began, my habit was more, from a religious perspective, a belief. But what we're trying to do is transform it, like we were saying yesterday, from a belief to a real experience. So to connect with God, I let go the consciousness of my body and I become the tiny soul. And we talk about the third eye. I think it's almost like you look through the eye and you see, not physically, but you see God and the qualities of God. And through your thought energy, you're absolutely in real connection. And it's like, rather than my mind sometimes, going to the past in a split second, going to a personality, going to a situation, it's like I keep plugging in there, then I plug in there. Whatever I plug into influences me and I have a feeling. It's almost like I'm plugging into this real living soul that's an unlimited source of love, power, joy, a real living being. And when I absorb myself in there, it's like it brings out my original nature. And I become more and more soul conscious. And as we know, the challenge is that when the heart yearns to have that cleanliness of connection. Yoga means union. It's a complete union of the consciousness with the lover of the soul, the supreme soul. Human beings give the name God, but just a soul that's untainted, never influenced. And when I really try to go there, the mind, because of my karmic story, in a split second, goes to a situation, goes to a person, someone's moving. You know how the mind is, the fickle human mind. And yet that's where I think the method of meditation is, where the heart goes, the mind follows. And it's really, in a sense, I feel, learning how lovable this soul is. A real soul, not just a concept or a religious belief that's a bit cold and not heartfelt, but a pure being. And I sometimes think, when does our love emerge most? Often, as you were describing, Emily, when you have a child, that child is so innocent and so attractive because of that purity and that innocence. In a sense, as we begin to create a picture of this being the purity, the innocence, and yet the wisdom and the power, it's a real relationship. And when I embark in the DNA of the human soul is to have relationship. It's fundamental to who we are. So where the heart goes, the mind will follow. There'll be like a natural concentration. And so the form you see everywhere around here, the the form of light is the sort of the image. Now, the soul has no size and the soul has no color, but to help us visualize so that we can begin the journey, we show that the form of God is just this point, like me, has no size, and yet within that is total infinity in a sense. And so it's like I connect. The soul, the more I become detached from my body, I become a bodiless soul. I'm resonating on the same wavelength. And my own experience is the incredible sense of revisiting your own power in a sense. It's like there's no source of power like this. I've seen people that when the connection happens, the determination, the willpower and the strength to transform myself, to overcome a habit, to deal with an addiction is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Because it's a real relationship. It's not just a sort of a concentration on a belief. It's a real living relationship. And the way I sort of feel as I go about my life, I just carry my lover with me as I go about my life. And it's just a thought away. And to be frank, in recent years, I find the word meditation, I prefer not to use it, because I think the image we have to sort of elevate our consciousness somewhere, and it just seems too hard, and most people can't do it. And so then they tend to feel I'm a failure, I can't meditate. Because meditation implies you have to sort of go somewhere. But what we use here is remember. I really love that as I go about my life, because remembering is absolutely natural. And each time you remember, three things happen. You connect. Whatever in that millisecond your mind darts across the world, back to Cambodia, back to Ukraine, wherever it might be, you connect with a person, a thing. It's instant. You are instantly influenced and you download a feeling. So basically whatever you connect with, you remember, you develop a feeling. And so here when I remember the Supreme, and Cal was saying the other day, in a way we often say Baba because it's a bit informal. Sometimes the formality of religion. And to be really frank, when I was a kid, when I went to, what are the classes when you start at church? Sunday school. Thanks, Skip. I went to a couple. No, it was confirmation classes. Yes, sorry, I was. I don't know. For me, and I was a naive young person, the God I was presented with was very sort of punishing, judgmental and authoritarian, and it just put me off completely. And I always told everyone I'm an atheist. I just don't relate to this stuff at all. And as I travelled, wandered the world, I became an agnostic. I was open, but I just don't know. But literally, when I I was introduced to the idea that I'm a soul, God is also a soul. There's a sense of relatedness. And I was just one day thinking about that, and I had this, you know how time sort of, just this eternal moment, I felt this incredible connection. I felt completely and utterly and totally loved to the core of my being. And I just noticed something in me just let go. I just felt I've come home. This is what I've always looked for, this connectedness with the divine, with God, with Baba, whatever you like to say. And that since then, it's been my prime relationship in life. And I found that when my mind's connected to people, their opinions, their situations, what happens? Do you go up and down depending on how they are, how they think of you? But when my mind's connected there, it's such a point of stability. It's it's like that's the influence. And even though this world is swirling around you with all the stuff going on, all the opinions, all the karmic stories, the stability. And all you have, you don't have to be religious at all. It's just a natural living relationship, but the relationship is with a being that doesn't hold a physical form, and that's our challenge, because we've lost that ability to connect in that way. And that's, and sometimes I just think there's, 3 sources of love, and I will finish up in a sec. There's myself, there's God, and there's our family and friends. And from me, we know most of us these days, that's the biggest struggle, to have a genuine, respectful, loving relationship with me. So not much love coming, sometimes. With God, I think for most people, we're just not sure what that's about. But there may be a deep belief, but not a real sense of belonging, relationship, love, intimacy, closeness. And so my one source is my family and friends. And if there is a loss, an upheaval, a conflict, a separation, it's like my world goes in absolute total upheaval because the sources of my love have been broken. But I think what is really spirituality is first this loving relationship with myself as a soul. I reconnect with that, and then a loving relationship with God, who's also a soul, or Baba, a real living connection. And it's as simple as, rather than my mind all day going all over the place, I start to practice to connect. As I connect, I'm influenced by the qualities of God, and then I download that vibe into my mind. I find that when I download that vibe into my mind, it's a vibration that sustains you. You don't need anything else because it's so light, so loving, so sweet. And it not only sustains you, it creates an atmosphere around you, and it sustains those people you love. Just by being. You don't have to say anything. Just by being, it sustains. If I'm connected always to people, it's up and down, it's all over the place. And mostly today, we're trying to sort out our relationships with people. And if it's just connected to me and my past and all my story, that's the lowest vibration. That sort of drains you. And in a sense, the spiritual journey is, trying to remain soul conscious. Trying to remain soul conscious and remembering as I go about my life, as I fulfill my responsibilities, keeping, and I call it the subtle thread of the intellect connected to the divine, to God, to Baba. Thank you so much, Kim. And so that relationship becomes something absolutely real in my life. So I've tried to be very essenceful.
Charlie, thank you.